All right. So this is an Excel document that I've put this formula in. And as I mentioned, you take word count, multiply it by the average reading speed per minute, you get your ART. So let's say your average story, let's say that story on Metaphase is 1,000 words. It's a lot more than 1,000 words, but let's be generous. And let's say your average salary, benefits, and overhead per hour is $20 an hour. Now, this is low. Even if you've got people who are making minimum wage, this is pretty low because you've got a span of salaries from your highest paid, your CEO, your directors, things like that, to your lowest paid people. So if it's $20 an hour and you've got 5,000 employees divided by 60 minutes per hour, that communication is costing you $1,667 per minute that everyone is reading that article, right? So if it takes 5 minutes to read that article, 5 minutes, that one article cost you over $8,000 because people are reading instead of working. You're paying them to sit there and read. And of course, it gets worse as the income goes higher. All right, if you're sending one article like that out every week, not every week, every other week, the annualized cost is over $300,000. If you're talking about professionals making at least $50 an hour with overhead and benefits and all of that, that one article is costing 20 grand. Not to mention if you're doing that over the course of a year. Let's look at your newsletter. Let's say your newsletter's got 3 feature stories, a couple other small articles, some announcements, things like that. It can easily be 2,500 words, right? Again, if you're even on the low end at $20 an hour, that newsletter is costing you $20,000 in productivity. For a year, that's over $500,000. And again, 20 is low, right? Look at that. One newsletter. How many newsletters do you get from your communications department in your organization? Think about that. In my current organization, I work on 2 weekly newsletters. There's also the President's newsletter, which goes out every 2 weeks. There's also another newsletter that goes out once a month. And then each facility, there are about 13 facilities. Each facility has their own newsletter, things like that. So imagine just how much in productivity we're losing with all these communications. So the one question you do have to ask is this communication worth $20,000? Is Metaphase worth $20,000? I don't know, but that is something that you can talk about with your leaders. You can run through that communication and say, here's how much it's going to cost for people to stop and read it. And then they'll say, oh, well, not everyone will read it. Okay, but everyone should be reading it, right? You're talking about Metaphase. You're talking about we're changing processes and processes and processes. Everyone's going to need to know that. So that's just one way to communicate with leaders in a language that they understand. And also, it'll help raise your profile because it helps you be a business partner instead of just a cost center. You're providing them with insights that they can actually use to get better and increase their bottom line. So now that I've completely shocked you, now's the time to tie it all together. You get your project, you approach it strategically. You don't allow people to just drive by. You don't just immediately start. You ask those questions. What are the business outcomes that we need from this? Right? What are our communication outcomes? What's our strategy? And only then do you get to the tactics.